Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Stella Umuna, and I'm the PQD of District 46. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our region advisor, Cindy Laatsch, DTM PRA. Cindy has been a dedicated Toastmaster since 2009, and she currently serves in our region, supporting District 40, 46, 66, 83, and 119. She brings with her a wealth of leadership experience, having served as district director, program quality director, governor marketing. I think that was CGD of the old days, and immediate past district director. She has also previously served as a region advisor, so this is her second time, and she's the recipient of the Toastmasters International President Citation and Distinguished District Director recognition. Cindy is passionate about supporting districts leaders as they execute the district mission. She also loves building new clubs and strengthening existing clubs. And she's a trusted resource, a strength finder coach, and an experienced facilitator who leads through our Toastmaster core values of integrity, respect, service, and excellence. Without further ado, let's bring our wonderful Cindy Laatsch to the virtual stage. Take it away, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you, Stella. And I'm delighted to be here tonight and talking about something that I actually really do enjoy talking about. And I appreciate the intro, but what I like to say is we're all Toastmasters. So, what I want to talk about tonight is something that does have a lot of meaning to me because how I used to feel about it and how I feel about it now has evolved over time. So I'm going to open up a PowerPoint deck. But before I do, I like very collaborative sessions. So questions, thoughts, something motivates you, we can talk about it. I'm going to leave time at the end, but I'm really a big believer in collaborative as well. So let me open up because I think the slides are just kind of how we can start the discussion. All right. So I like the title that Stella provided, Conflict to Collaboration, Navigating Through Tough Conversations. Or it could just be called Navigating Through Conversations, because whether it's tough or not is a very personal thing. So what I thought I'd start out with, because I'm still someone who has a dictionary. So I went and I looked up what is conflict. And this is, I'm going to read it exactly like it's written. Conflict is described as a serious disagreement and or argument about something deemed important. And a couple key words in that to me are it's serious, it's a serious discussion, and it's deemed important because a lot of times people don't have conflict over things they don't find unimportant. Like, what flavor of yogurt do you like? That really does not stir a lot of people. Now, unless you're a yogurt aficionado. So you really have to think about in conflict, what is the serious nature of it. And then, Stella, if I can ask you a question while I'm doing this, if hands go up or if people have questions, just interrupt me, okay? All right. So, conflict is described as a serious disagreement. And then, if two people or groups, right, because you can have groups that are in conflict, if they are in conflict and in disagreement, it means they have not yet reached agreement. And what that says to me is conflict is not the natural state. We desire to be in agreement. I think that is where most people think they want to live. They don't want to live in disagreement. So tonight, it isn't going to be any solutions, or I'm not going to say things that you probably haven't heard before. I just want to give you a new way to look and think about conflict. And they call it reframing. And I don't know if you've heard that word before, reframing something. So, when I got married, my husband said, I'm afraid of roller coasters. And I said, how about you don't say you're afraid of roller coasters and say, I'm really excited when I ride a roller coaster, right? It's the same thing, but he wasn't feeding himself that negativity. So, what I'm hoping tonight is through our conversation and your thoughts and input, we can come away with a new look at conflict because conflict is very personal to very different people. So I always like to start out, and this is always a fun question. So, and this is a open your mic up and talk if you'd like. How do you feel about conflict? Like when you hear the word conflict, oh, conflict, what does that mean to you? Who wants to throw out some thoughts about what they think and feel about conflict? Anybody? Is this conflict right now? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Because I see Lisa. Lisa, go ahead. Oh, Lisa, I think you,
Yeah, yeah.
yep, there you go.
Okay. When I think about conflict, I want to say um, problematic.
For you,
Um, yeah,
you don't like it.
kind of.
Okay. That I would say you are in the 99 percentile, right?
Oh shit.
I think you're in the largest percentile. Dean, what are your thoughts on conflict?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking my question,
Absolutely.
or my statement, rather. I believe that conflict is more of a situation where you have the lighthouse and an immovable object and a force of nature, and there's no movement that can be gained from either side. You have to bend to one's will. I think that's true conflict.
Okay, so if you and I are having the discussion about, and honest to Pete, this actually happened. Years ago, we were having a discussion about creating a new, it was new, role in a Toastmaster meeting and agenda. It was called the Joke Master, and there's another one called the Quiz Master. And in the board meeting, someone brought those up. Hey, we could do this. And someone else said, absolutely not. That isn't what we've done. That's not how it's done here. So that's kind of what you're saying is that someone needs to bend to someone else's thought about something.
Yes,
True?
especially if they're not willing to compromise, then it's only one or the other, and
Oh,
then
yes.
that becomes the conversation of the day.
Yes. And that's why, and I'll date myself. I'm going to say in the 80s, they came up with this concept of win-win. You guys have heard that, right? When you want to have a win-win situation. Back in the day, it wasn't uncommon, to Dean's point, that you have a if I'm a winner, what does it make you naturally? Say it out loud. If I have to win,
Loser.
yes. Yes, if I have to win my point, my argument that those roles can't be in, I have to be the winner. It tends to make others a loser. And nobody that I know of wants to be
A
the
loser.
loser. And that's why when win-win came out as a concept and as a philosophy, that if each of us can do this, can participate, to your point, can bend, can flex. In fact, a lot of times I think when you're in those moments where that's happening, neither answer is the right answer. I like to think, what's the second right answer? If I think I have the right answer and you think you have the right answer, I like us to challenge ourselves and go, you know what? With all that information, how can we come up with the second right answer? because then you don't have that concept of winner and loser. So, Dean, did you have other things that you wanted to add? I see you've got your hand up.
And Ro had her hand up, but it's down now.
Oh, who else
Oh,
wants to say something?
sorry.
No worries. Ro, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm typing it up, but it's basically for me when I think about conflict, at the root cause of it is differences in opinions, in ideas, understanding, or perception.
Yes. 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 And we're going to dig into that. It's like you just set me up. Thank you for doing that. You just set me up for the rest of my conversation because that is pivotal, what you just said. So there are usually two camps of people. I don't like conflict. I avoid it in my life. I'd rather just get along with people. You know, the old, why can't we just all get along? That whole concept. And then, oh, I feel really uncomfortable when I'm in conflict with somebody or in a situation. So those might resonate with some people on the call. Yeah, I don't like it. I avoid it. And I'm going to tell you a secret. There is no such thing as avoiding a conflict. Here's what happens. You have a session or a topic with someone and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to kick it down the road. I'm just going to go, that's fine. Sure. Yeah, that's good. No, that's fine. What happens when you keep avoiding that conflict by, kicking that can down the road? One day, usually, you just pop a gasket and people don't understand what happened. They're usually such a rational person, right? So, avoiding conflict, I believe, is really our attempt to make ourselves feel not uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean the conflict still isn't there. That's the funny part. Then there actually I've asked this question at other presentations and people have said, I love conflict. I love it. It's very rare, but they're out there. And when I dug further into it, I think I really came up with what they were saying. And what they were saying is things like, I'm comfortable, I'm fine when I'm in conflict. That's fine, I'm good. I think you get really good ideas when you have conflict, right? And if you've ever been in a conflict, do you ever sometimes say things in your honest opinion that you might not say if you weren't? Like, you know what? It really bothers me. Here was a real life one. It really bothers me. This was I worked at Harley Davidson in Milwaukee for many years, and there was somebody that came like 10 minutes late to every meeting. And everybody would just zip it. And finally, this burbled up, and I was running the meetings, and I said, you know, it, I'm really uncomfortable with you coming late to all the meetings. Can I ask why? And I felt, disrespected and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, I just lose track of time. So I was putting much more meaning on that conflict, or what I perceived as a conflict. And she just would get so down in it. So then here's what I do. As I walk by her desk, I'd say, Melissa, we're heading off to the meeting. And you know what she'd do? Scurry to be there. So I was putting a negative impulse on something when she didn't even notice. So those two kinds of people, I don't like conflict. I'll avoid it at any cost. If you've ever done Strengths Finder, I don't know if you guys have ever done Strengths Finder where you identify your top 5 strengths, but one of them is called harmony. And harmony is, let's all get along. My sister has harmony so high that if she perceives a conflict is coming, she'll take you on the side and say, could you just say nothing so that people don't get upset? That's how uncomfortable she is when people are not in harmony. So, but it doesn't serve anyone's purpose. So as you look at these two people, these two camps that people kind of fall into, the first is these responses are about how you feel, not really about the topic that you're necessarily discussing. You might feel uncomfortable talking about money in a certain situation. or talking about this can be hard for people. I was really disappointed when you said you were going to do X, but you didn't. That's an honest concern that you're conveying. And it's about how you feel. It's not about how the topic runs. And what's interesting is those very one-off people who are much more okay with topic, it's also about how they feel. A lot of those individuals who I have spoken to said, when I find we have multiple ideas, like I have this idea for this and they have this idea, we come to this solutioning that I don't think we would have otherwise by having that kind of abrasive friction. There's an old saying, have you ever heard of it? A burr under your saddle. I don't know if you've ever heard that sentence, but somebody's got a burr under their saddle, which means they're kind of crabby. That's because horses used to actually get a burr under their saddle. And when somebody was riding the horse, it would be very uncomfortable. So that's what conflict can be, a burr. That's something that's abrasive. But I'm going to challenge you as we walk through this to think about, hey, maybe I could just think about this differently. So when you're in conflict, and these are a couple of things I've learned the hard way because I didn't do them right the first time or the first 20 times. So remember, if you're in a conflict, there are no secrets. And what do I mean by that? If I'm at a Toastmaster board meeting and say I'm the VP of something and I'm talking to the president and we have a conflict about how something's going to run or something that occurs and it doesn't get resolved and the meeting ends and I go home and I text my Toastmaster friend and go, oh, you're not going to believe this. But we had this same conversation. He said, I said, they said. Well, guess what? The minute you talk about this to a third party, it is no longer a private conversation. And here's what I've seen happen. Somebody shoots an email off to a colleague or a friend and says, oh, you should have seen this. They didn't want to flex. They didn't want to hear my point. And then you get into that email thing. Well, guess what? Here's the magical phrase I learned. Email lives forever. And by that, I mean that person gets to keep that email. And sometime, maybe later at a district event, they could take out that email and say, did you see this email that this person sent me? So I just caution you, when you're in conflict and you want to have counsel with someone, always go up and not down. And what do I mean by that? If I'm an area director and I have some issues, I don't talk to the club boards that I'm working with or the club members, right? That's our reporting structure. I talk to my division director. I talk to the trio. I take my concerns up, not down. When you take your concerns down, there's a word for it, and they call it gossip, right? And we don't want to be in that gossip world. So remember, when you're in a conflict and you start sharing it, there are no secrets, and it can come back around to get you. How do I know this? I have done it, right? I have done it. This one is interesting. Remain the mirror. I had a boss once, and I don't know if any of you can attest to this. You don't have to raise your hand or say it, but I had a boss once that I did not like. I don't know if that's other people on the call that you've ever had a boss that you didn't really gel with, but my boss and I did not gel. And every time we'd have a one-on-one meeting, we'd be talking about work, but you could feel the tensions rising. It was very weird. You could feel the tension rising. And I was talking to a woman that came out to Harley Davidson once a month. It was kind of cool. She came out from Harvard and she was a clinical psychologist from Harvard. And she would teach classes and then do coaching. And we were talking about this. I was talking to her about this weird conflict. Like, we can be talking about work, but I feel this tension between us just keep growing. She said, here's what I want you to do. And picture this. She said, I want you to go into the meeting with an open heart. I don't want you to go in feeling he's out to get me, all those thoughts we have. She said, I want you to go in with an open and available heart. And as the meeting is happening, I want you to continue to look for and say to yourself all the things you have in common. I had nothing in common with this guy. Okay. So if you could have read my thought bubbles before, it would have been things like, oh, gosh, you annoy me. Why don't you listen to me? See, these were the thoughts that I was having. I went into this meeting with an open heart and I sat there and I said, I found one. This is me thinking. You're a human and I'm a human. That's all I could find, right? You're human and I'm human. Then I went, oh, you work at Harley Davidson. I work at Harley Davidson. Oh, you've been at Harley Davidson over 20 years. I've been at Harley Davidson over 20 years. You have daughters, no sons. I am one of only daughters. Then I thought, ooh, you know what? I was on the phone with him once when he was at home, and I heard a big bird in the background. And he said, yeah, I have a conure. It's a parrot, a type of a parrot. I had a conure. So suddenly, those thought bubbles that I was having that he couldn't see, that no one could see, they were finding things that were, I was finding things that were collaborative between us, that were similar between us, instead of not, instead of, oh, I can't stand this guy. I can't stand this guy. He really rubs me the wrong way. And here's what would happen in the meetings. We would be talking about work, but I don't know about you. But when you're mildly annoyed or super annoyed, does your face ever give you away? Right? There's a name for it. I won't say it, but there's a name for it. So I knew I was in a meeting with my boss. I knew we were talking about work things, and I know at times my face totally gave away how I was feeling. But I policed myself and I said, you know what? Open heart. We have all these things in common. And when the meeting was over, it was like magical. He said to me, Cindy, this is the best meeting we've ever had. And I realized the only reason we had this amazing meeting was because I was controlling my thoughts. I was self-policing, self-checking myself. So I remained the mirror back and forth. I didn't think the thoughts I wanted, and I mirrored back to him. I'd said, so what you're saying to me is, you want this and this. Am I understanding that by this date, you want this to happen? So when you remain a mirror with someone, especially someone you're having a discussion with, suddenly it becomes much more collaborative, much more collaborative. So being the mirror back and forth, now they might not, maybe they'll learn it at some point, but maybe they won't. Being the mirror means you maintain self-control. You maintain the ability to control your thoughts. And it was like magic. When he said this was the best meeting I ever had, I went right to Roberta, who was this clinical psychologist I had talked to. And I said, Roberta, it worked. And she said, Cindy, it is not magical. What we telegraph with our body, our eyes, our face overrides the words that we say. So remember, when you're feeling these feelings, don't think of what's the next thing I get to say. What's the next thing I can tell them that they were wrong? Think, how can I mirror this back to them to create that commonality? And it wasn't easy, but I found I could do it. I could do it. Has anyone ever been in that kind of a situation where you're talking about one thing, but you can feel the tensions between you rising? Yeah. Isn't that weird? That, right, Stella? You're not even saying it out loud. You're not even saying, oh, I think this is stupid, but do you feel this rising tension?
Yes. That
Yeah.
happens sometimes. Yeah, I once had a boss, same just like you. I didn't really get along fine with him, but it was just the way he came across. But then my husband told me the same thing. Just be patient and listen. And then in the end it turned out he was actually a good boss. It's just the way he presented himself. Initially, it was just different from my other bosses. And it took
Yeah.
me a while to get used to it. But then I understood eventually. Yes.
Yes. Everyone has style. There's an old phrase, I think it was Mark Twain who said, my father really annoyed me when I was 12 to 16 years old. But my dad got so much smarter when I was 25, right? And it's not dad who changed, right? It's us who changed. So just kind of remember that when people are tripping that trigger in you, you have control. And we're going to talk about that. Now, this is a cool one, and this one took some practice. So I had it wasn't hostile. I had a cold. I didn't like her style. She didn't like my style, right? We worked together. And it was just real easy to want to kind of go around like, oh, I don't want to work with this one. I'm going to go over here and do this. And one day I took a piece of paper, and this is really interesting. I took a piece of paper, and you know how you write a T on a piece of paper? Like good things, bad things, right? Benjamin Franklin actually invented that. So I took a piece of paper and I did things I like about her and things I don't like about her. And oh boy, the don't likes, I could get those down. I don't like the fact that she appears cold. I don't like the fact that she, won't respond to emails. I don't like the fact that, and I went through and did all that. I was like, oh, now I have to think of good ones. And I sat there and I said, whoa, I love the fact that she lived in a very rural part outlying of Milwaukee and she rescued horses. I'm like, oh, I love that. I rescue dogs, she rescues horses. She was married for many years before she had her child, and oh, they loved him so much. Oh, I'm going to write that down. She was an awesome mom. And suddenly, the things I liked and respected about her was longer than the things that kind of just annoyed me. And I challenged myself because every time I saw her, I'd go into that repetitive thinking about, uh, uh. But now I learned to flip it. I learned to go, oh, when I'm starting to feel those feelings, oh, remember all those horses she saved. And remember those beautiful pictures she showed me with her son. So I challenged myself to flip my perspective because I think for all of us, it's so easy. I don't know about you, but it's so easy to get into that repetitive negative thinking about a person or a process. And when you challenge yourself to try to flip something, suddenly you gain a deeper perspective. And it challenged me personally. So, did I love her? No. But later on, she said, she came to me and said, hey, can I talk to you? And I said, of course. So we went somewhere private. She said, I have to ask you, why, when you apply for a job at Harley Davidson, do you always get an interview and you usually get the job you want? And I said, I think it's what I know and personality. And I said, may I be truly honest with you? Because we developed that. She said, yes. I said, you're a little prickly to work with. I don't know if you know that, but that is the perception that precedes you. And she said, yeah, I know it and I don't care. And I said, then that's fine. So when you learn to flip it, you learn to challenge your own perspectives, which I think is vital, especially when you're looking at someone you have conflict with. And then this is a so this really happened story. So this really happened. I was in a choral group that would sing. We've been at Carnegie Hall, and we were in this beautiful venue in Orlando, Florida. And I had committed oh, we're rehearsing to here and then our concert starts. Let's go out to dinner. I said, I'll make the reservation. There were 6 people. And suddenly, the other woman that I was talking with created a Facebook post and a text chain, and she had all this information going about we're going out, who wants to come, and I'm just watching this going, how many people are coming? And at some point, right before I had to make the reservation, I called her. And the reason I called her because texting is not her first language. I don't know if you know people like that, but they are not good texters or they don't like getting text. So I physically phoned her. I said, hey, quick question. As I look at the information, we have between 6 and 14 people coming to this event, and I just want to make the reservation for the right number. And she said, well, if you'd have used your brain, you wouldn't have had to call me. And there was old Cindy, but new Cindy took over. And I just literally had the phone and I just sat there processing that. And after about, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 seconds, she said, hey, if you're saying stuff, you're on mute. And I said, oh, no, I'm not on mute. I was just really listening to what you said. Is that what you meant to say? There was another long pause, and she died on this hill. She said, yeah, it was. And I said, oh, okay, all right. Um, okay. Well, my brain says I'm going to make it for 6. Okay. And that was the right number. She's not a good typer, so she'd been putting in the wrong numbers. And something I've learned about when you're having a discussion with someone and they say things like that, which could provoke a conflict, when somebody says words like, I can't believe you did that, or use your brain, you're not smart, one of the best tools I've honed is say nothing. Let it soak. Let it soak. You are not obligated when somebody throws a nasty gram at you to catch it and respond to that. You are not obligated. Sometimes I've even said, say that again. And very rarely do people say that again because they said it for a reason. When you say, I'm sorry, say that again, they usually tweak it or change it or refine it. I've actually had a colleague who would say to people, I don't respond to that kind of tone. So I realized I didn't have to take the energy that she threw at me and just give it back. I just sat and listened. And I said, I've got it. Great. I'll make the reservation. Click. And then I sat at my desk and I said, 60 seconds. She's going to call in 60 seconds. And in less than 60 seconds, my phone rang. And she said, hey, you seemed upset. And I'm sorry if you took it the wrong way. Now, I'm telling you all, that is not an apology, right? When you tell people, I'm sorry you took my insult the wrong way, that's not apology. Apology isn't about the person, apology is about I. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. So I listened and I said, oh, I didn't take it any other way than it was intended. Thanks for calling back. And she called a third time and said the same thing. And I said, I got it. We're clear. I'm going to go make the reservation. So just so that you realize a couple things that I didn't know, I wish I'd have known them sooner. When someone launches something at you, you do not have to reply immediately. You have the power to say things like, I'm sorry, say that again. If you kind of want to like hear it, let the words sort of dangle out there. And invariably people will say, well, no, what I meant to say is you should have texted me or you should have called me. So take ownership of how you are communicated to. It feels really good. And I felt when we finished that, and here's the funny thing, I wasn't mad, I wasn't upset. And when I left the room, I thought, I feel like a grown-up, right? I feel like a grown-up person. So remember, you get to pick how you feel, how you act, how you respond. It is not locked in that if someone says something to you rude or abrasively, that it requires that back. A lot of times people think that is required, but I don't think it is. The other thing is nobody can make you say anything you don't want to say. She wanted to say that. That's something she's either heard before or said before. She wanted to say that to me. And people invariably talk about, and have you guys ever heard this? She pushed my buttons. Have you heard phrases like that? You pushed my buttons, or you triggered me. Here's my belief. I don't have any buttons. There are no buttons on me. Nobody can walk up and push my anger button, right? It's not there. I don't really think things trigger you either. I think when somebody says something that causes something in you, it's an alert to you. It's like a red flag to you to say, oh, I don't like being called names. That's what I felt when she said that to me. I like my brain, right? I don't think we are triggered or we have buttons. That people say things that cause us to think certain things, but here's the really cool part. You get to pick whether you react, whether you respond, whether you even say thanks. It's like when you get emails. I had someone that worked for me at Harley that would get an email and then felt they had to defensively go back and answer the email. I said, I think emails are like invitations to parties. You get an invitation to a party, you can say, yes, I'll answer it. You can say, no, I'm not going to answer it. And you can throw it in the garbage. That's kind of how I believe we evolve when we move through the conflict phases. That I don't have to pick it anymore. It doesn't become me. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't. I've often thought, oh, I really want to say this. And in the situations where I did, invariably I regret it. Invariably I regret it. So I've gotten smarter at stopping myself, pausing, and then going in. So really remember, nobody can make you say anything you don't want to say. And here's a great thing, because I've had times where someone says something that takes me so by surprise. Here's another great alternative. You know what? Let's come back around and talk about that. That's okay to say, you know what? I'm not sure how I feel about that right now, but let's come back around and talk about that. That to me is a very adult way of potentially dealing with conflict. All right, so I want to leave time for comments and questions and all the things you guys may have. But let's talk about lens, what I call lens awareness. So I wear glasses. So when I take off my glasses, I can still see everything. I still see, it's just not as clear. It's just not as crisp. So when I put my glasses back on, oh, wow, I can read books, I can see the computer, I see with crispness. And I challenge all of us to become aware of your lens. And understanding your lens, I think it allows you to more fully understand who you are and others. And I'm a huge advocate of self-awareness. Too often in life, I believe people move through their life with no awareness of how they're perceived, what their actions feel like to others, that they just plow ahead, right? We've known people like that. They're just like a train on the track and they just keep going. I challenge everyone. Your life is kind of like a train on a track, right? You're going straight ahead. but you are not a helpless passenger on that train. I realize at times when I'm in that mode, that jam ahead mode, I have to come up above and look around and go, what's going on? Am I doing the right things? Hey, did I take my vitamins today? Am I drinking the water I should? Because guess what? When I forget to do those things some consecutive days, I start to feel not so good. So I have to come above my little train and go, what's going on in my life? Am I checking all the correct boxes for myself? Because if I have awareness of me, I think it's kinder to the rest of the world if I have understanding of me. And I've determined there are two different kinds of lenses. And I think this would be interesting to hear from you guys. So I think there's two different kinds of lenses. The first is the feeling lens, and the second is the data lens. When you're in a conflict or a situation where people are coming at things differently, I challenge you to rise above it and look at it and go, I'm coming from the data lens. That's usually the lens I come from, the data lens. But they're coming from their feeling lens. Not good, not bad, not better, not worse. But when you understand that you have a bias toward data, and people have a bias toward how they feel maybe about the data, if you can become self-aware of that, I think you can minimize a lot of what is perceived as conflict. If you go to Google and put in dashboards, it's going to pull up the Toastmaster dashboards. You don't even have to log in. And I do that to look at the numbers because the numbers tell me the stories. Your district leaders on this call, they're doing that all the time. They're going to the dashboard and they're looking at where are we going? How are the payments? What's going on? How many new clubs do we have? How many members? Now, that's an interesting thing. Toastmasters does not count how many members your district has. It counts the member payments. Right? And I see that, I see some head shaking that, yep, they don't count the bodies that are in the district. So they count the member payments. Why is that? Because if you're in one club, you make how many member payments a year? 2. If you're in 2 clubs, you make 4. So it would be very complicated for them to try to understand how many physical humans are in the district, right? I come from a data lens. As I look at the group here, do we have other people that are data people? Data is kind of how they see the world. We got data people. Is it Shernette?
Yes.
Talk to me about how you feel about data.
Well, I was just typing, hi. I was just typing in the chat. I am very data oriented, or try to stay conscious of separating the feelings from the data. I had the opportunity last week, we're almost there, with a friend who I've known for a very long time. And we had a conflict generated by her feeling triggered by something I'd said. And she kept going back to the feelings part of things. And I kept referring back to a text to show her where what she was feeling was not supported by what was said, that she was actually creating dialogue that didn't even exist because of how she felt. And I am an attorney, so I'm also trained in that regard to separate the facts from the feelings. And so I try to use it. I've been trying to use it more in my personal life as well. And it took a while, but that friend has gotten to the place where she's saying, yes, I can see where I was saying, I was not looking at the facts. How can we talk? So I'm very much data oriented, and it works. I did the same thing with my daughter last week. She was in her feelings. I stayed with the facts, and she came around. And it's a great feeling when that happens. It really is.
It's a great feeling. That's it.
Yeah.
And you know what I want to really reiterate? Super awesome. You're an attorney. I love that. feelings are important. Feelings are like guideposts to us as human beings. We should and need to have feelings. When we suppress and try not to have a feeling, that has very negative consequences. So having feelings about facts is fine. Like I can remember when I was a district director early on in the year or mid-year, I had sad feelings that our district wasn't doing as well as I thought it should be. So it was valid that the data showed me something, and it was valid that I had feelings that made me feel not so great. So it's and I'll say this as a data person, I think sometimes data people can come off as like like a bat, baseball bat. Like
Mm.
you're okay to have feelings, but right now we're talking about this,
Yeah.
right? Don't go far afield.
Yes.
Let's keep coming back. Oh, and I did see a question. Do you believe there aren't words that can trigger a person with PTSD? I have PTSD. So I was diagnosed about 5 years ago. So I've lived most of my adult life, not even knowing I had it. And I do still, and it's a me thing, I don't trigger. I could, trust me. It's Dean, right? Trust me, I could. There are times when, like that woman saying, if you had a brain, oh my goodness, old me would have, yeah? Uh, who are you talking to? I mean, old me would have tripped that trigger. And I do have PTSD. And it was diagnosed, and I've learned the tools. That's the thing. I've learned the tools. I've worked hard to get things under control. So there may be people that absolutely have challenges with that, but I wouldn't say it's a given. I wouldn't say it's a given. So yeah, as one who can speak from experience, when I was letting things bother me all the time, it really sapped my energy. It really caused me more, I think, self-inflicted pain than I deserved. Than I deserved. And here's another phrase. I don't know, you guys have probably heard this phrase. That's not a hill I'm willing to die on. Have you guys heard that phrase? That's not a hill I'm willing to die on. And what that means to me is, I mean, even a Toastmaster board member, as an area director, as a division director, as a trio member, things are happening all the time. Conversations are happening all the time. You're getting emails, you're getting texts. And sometimes I read them and go, you know, eh, like that's not a hill I'm willing to die on. Meaning, I'm not going to go fight this person over their feeling or perception of that situation. And yet, there are things that are vitally important to me that I will stand for. Dean, I see your hand.
Thank you again. And so, for those things that you feel are vitally important that you should stand for,
Yes.
then in those instances, would you then confront the person about the things that they've said?
Okay. I'm going to challenge you a couple things. I don't confront people. Okay. That's the first thing. I think words are powerful things. And I don't confront people. I ask questions. I'm straightforward. I can be direct in my questions. So I would confronting to me has this feel to it. Yeah, right? So
That's not how
yes.
I mean it.
Okay, good. Yes, absolutely. Let me think of a topic. Okay, I'm big into dog rescue. And I know people that could care less about dogs. And they've kind of come at me about that's so stupid and there's humans that need to be rescued and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's vitally important to me. And I think that's the difference. There would be no winning, right? Dean, in that argument, there'd be no winning. So I agree with you. There are times that I stand very firm on what I believe. And I will say it from the mountaintop. And there are other times when I think, meh, right? I can't give 100% of myself all the time because we deplete ourselves. Yeah, we deplete ourselves. And I also see in the chat, it says, right, situationally, things are very important. It depends. Is this your workplace? Is this some stranger you meet in the grocery store? We really have to gauge ourselves as to how much of ourself are we gonna like rip open to people. I was the captain of my debate team in high school and into college. And debate is really interesting. And I'm sure our attorney has a debate is very structured, it has rules, it has processes. You don't just argue freely. And so understanding debate to some degree and how people communicate with each other has made it over time easier for me. I think as I matured as a human, that I don't always have to win. My idea doesn't always have to be the shiny one. And this one was really hard for me. Good enough is good enough, right? Good enough is good enough. You don't need to give your heart and your soul and torture yourself and even if you've made a mistake, and I've made them. And I've decided to give myself grace over those situations. So at this point, we've had some great topics. I now want to say, who has thoughts or wants to talk about something that's happened to them or something they've maybe overcome or not? I've got 5 minutes left in my time. And so I'm going to stop sharing.
Jeanette has her hand.
Yes, Jeanette.
Hi, Cindy. I also wanted to say, I wonder if just setting the tone for the day and using things like meditation, if that works for others, because it certainly works for me. And I've become more consistent with it. And I found recently that something that happened at work that would normally irritate me, that I was mildly amused by it. And I was not feeling irritated. And I think setting the tone in the mornings before you go out, meditating, taking some quiet time, and putting your intentions out as to how you intend for your day to flow. I think that that is also helpful in keeping you grounded when you come upon conflicts. I'm certainly not perfect. There are times when I respond, but I think I can see where it does work for me.
Yeah, we're all work in progress, and that's what I love. We evolve and we change, and it is true. If you don't, and it's setting intentions, some people are very rigorous about it, and I think others are less rigorous. But I have asked myself, what kind of a day are you going to choose to have today?
Right.
What kind of a day are you going to have a day because you just feel like it? Well, you can, but what comes of that? Right? What comes of that? So I'm going to, and I love your thing about, yes, sometimes things that would really have upset me, yeah, they're kind of funny.
Yeah.
When you look at them now and you're like, that used to get me all upset. And guess what now? The phrase I like to use, even if I use it in my own head, is this, meh, right? Like, I'm not going to spend my capital, my internal social capital, my energy. I'm not going to spend that on people or situations that don't deserve it. And sometimes I think you have to learn to walk away. Right? If there's no winning, and there's often no winning, if there's no winning, sometimes you just call it a draw and say, and I hate the phrase, we have to agree to disagree, but sometimes you just have to have the ability in your own head to go, this is not a win. We are not going to stay here. Other thoughts? So, Michael, you were here. Michael was the first guy on the call. What are your thoughts about conflict or any observations you might have had?
Well, first I just gotta say, wonderful presentation you did, Sydney.
Thank you.
And I loved how you touched on just walk away from the conflict, because that's what I'm trying to do for myself, and I'm improving on it. Because old Mike would have just gone like, would have gone like tit for tat with the person who was giving me conflict, and I would have brought it up like 10 notches. If they bring it up to 5, I bring it up to 10 until they saw my point.
Yeah, it's like that. You don't. I don't. I can't win every talk. I don't win. It's not. It's not about winning either. To me, I've learned it's about collaborating, about coming up with that second right answer, and it's also about learning what are the people that just kind of make me nuts. And there are certain things that just make me nuts. And what I found was in Strength Finder, this thing that I do, and if any of you are into it, let me know. It's fun to talk about. But there's a personality style called activator. And activator, goodbye, Ro. Activator are people that, like, you're mid sentence talking about a plan and they've left the room and they've already done it and completed it and mailed it in. And I just like to be more collaborative with that. So I know that trips my trigger. So when I see it start to happening, I don't go, oh, I go, Cindy, self aware. You must become self aware. And if I can, I don't engage, right? Why engage with the people that don't, well, not everybody has to give you joy, but they don't even give you status quo. So you're right. It's about making those choices. Other thoughts?
Well,
Yes.
when is it important? When is it okay to go into conflict, to stand up for your rights, let's just say?
Oh,
When is it
absolutely.
okay?
I think that was an important way to put it. When you're standing up for something that you desperately believe in, when it's a topic that you hold dear, um, and standing up does not mean seeking conflict, right? I think a lot of it is how we say the things. So once again, there are things that I hold firm on that if somebody comes in to my little purview, yes, we'll have a discussion. I always say I don't like conflict, but if you bring it to me, it's on, right? If I don't go looking, I know people that go looking for it, right? I call them pot stirrers, right? They like to stir the pot. I don't like to stir the pot. But if you come into my domain and you do that, we will engage. And I think part of that comes from self-awareness. What do you know? Who are you? What do you believe in? Like I always go in if I see a person being taken advantage of or a person being misused, miscommunicated, someone that just kind of it just draws me out. But you're right, Stella, you have to have self-awareness and understand who you are and what your beliefs are. We had, is it Usha?
Yeah. Yeah, there are some people you can argue, debate about the idea, you will never win. I have somebody like that until I find out that she has a personality disorders. She is Miss Perfect. She knows it all. An argument, you will never go anywhere. And she will tell me, I'll be tired. So when I realize, and she want to engage in discussion, debate, and all that, she's a nutrition. When I find it, the way to escape, and that was bingo. Whenever she start argument or discussion, oh, Uche, come, I have something to tell you. I say, goodbye. I don't want to hear.
That's a choice you can make.
Yeah, I say, see you. And then she doesn't like it. So sometimes when I'm going again, I say, oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. She'll start laughing because she knows, she want to start a conflict. And by the time the conflict is over, I'm going to be the one stressing out. So now I stress no more. When she starts, I say, see you, see you, see you, see you. And that's it. I don't engage in any discussion with her at all.
Yeah,
But that's what I do.
here's a great one too. And I used to do this at work when we'd be walking in the hallway and somebody's coming toward me and I'd be like, oh, hello, right? This thing is a great prop. This thing, oh, hi, right? And so it's your time. You own your time. And that's really what I want you to come away with. Dean, were you here? Did I see Dean? I thought
Yes,
I,
Yes,
Dean
I'm
had his hand
here.
up.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
Well, actually, she kind of asked the question. It was more about like the dealing with like this people who you're basically dealing with a zero-sum game
Yeah.
where there's just people who you just can't negotiate with. It's like it's what they want, and that's that. But at the same time, this is a very interesting conversation because it deals with game theory. Have you ever read the book Getting to Yes?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a very good book about that.
Getting
And
to yes.
but it doesn't talk about those types of scenarios. And one of the things that I find that it's some of the situations that we find ourselves in, let's say today, I believe are caused by people not correcting people when they have uh, a certain way of thinking or a certain idea or ideology that's like counterintuitive or is just unacceptable in society. And now we have situations where more and more people who believe ideas that just aren't, that are uncouth, but they're strengthened because we don't push back. Uh, and when I say we, I mean in a sense where it's like you understand that it makes no sense to have an argument with them. You just back away and say, "Fine, we could agree to disagree." But that person goes away thinking that they are in the right when
But
they're
you know
not.
what? Who cares? Who
Well,
cares? That's the approach I take. So now my father passed away probably 5 years ago now, but he was like such a dominator and his ideas were so right. And I used to kind of tussle with him growing up, like, no, Dad, that's wrong. And as I got older, I came up with these phrases and they were like this. He would come up with some crazy idea and he'd tell it to me, and I'd say, Dad, where did you get that idea? And he felt soothed. And I was thinking, what are you, crazy? Right? So I don't feel the need to correct others. If I hit those people, and there are those people that it's like, whatever you say, it's going to be, I just say, you know, whatever. I'm not, because my concepts are not the concepts either. That's where I think there is always a struggle, is there is no rightness. There is no correctness. I mean, unless
Mhm.
there's things, there's something, and I'll close with this. There's something called an assessment and something called an assertion. And we are assessing machines with feet. And by that, I mean, here's an assessment. Ah, gosh, did you see her shoes? They were so ugly. Oh, why did she wear that color? I didn't see that word for, man, that speech. They must have really practiced that very much. Those are assessments. I'm assessing something. In other words, I'm giving my opinion, right? They're assessments. They're assessments. I hate broccoli. I love cucumbers, right? Those are assessments. But we assess each other constantly, right? Why did she wear that? Ah, that color. That's an assessment. That's an assertion. No, that's an assessment. Okay. So here's an assessment. This is a piece of lined paper. It's 8.5 by 11. How do I know that's an assertion? I measure it. I look at it. I get out a ruler. I can say, this is a factual thing, right? This is an iPhone 15 Pro Max. How do I know that? I can turn it on and look at it. There's no debate. So assessing things, you're welcome to do it. We all do it, but it is not factual information. And assertions are. So this is an interesting sentence. It's 30 degrees out and it's a beautiful day. One of those is an assessment, one of them is an assertion. It's 30 degrees out is measurable. I can confirm it with a measuring device. It's a beautiful day. If it's 30 degrees out, my husband would say, you're crazy, right? I love winter days. So remember, assessing things is a human trait. Everybody, I do it, you do it, we all do it. That was wrong, that was stupid, they didn't prepare for that. I can't believe they did that. Those are opinions, and we're all welcome to them. Some people are really verbal with them, some people aren't. But assessments, and it kind of goes back to our legal counsel, assertions are measurable, quantifiable. Where were you at 8 o'clock? Well, I can prove it by my receipt, right? So when you look at people assessing things, I don't worry about that so much. I really don't. They're welcome to their assessments. But when you come into my world with an assertion, I want to make sure that it's legit. And I just saw that Strength Finder. Strength Finder is the really cool test. It's online at gallup.com. You identify your top 5 strengths. And once you identify your top 5 strengths, man, it can open up who you are as a person. Modern psychotherapy says, let's find where you were wounded and fix you. Strength Finder says, you're already doing some things great. Let's do more of those. So, Stella, if anybody's interested, we can put that on the docket for later. All right, I'm over time. We've had a great discussion. Stella, back to you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Cindy, for such a wonderful workshop. I loved it. It was amazing. Let's all give her a round of applause, and we look forward to seeing her again soon. Thank you.
I'm here for you
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Just remember that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Good night.
Thank you.